Hi everybody and welcome back to Junior Book Club. We are still reading The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin, and today we are going to read chapters 21 through 23, and chapter 21 is called The Fourth Bomb. The door to apartment 2C opened. Flora Baumbach screamed and Turtle flung herself on the pile of money that they had been counting. It was Theo, not the thief. "Can I borrow your bike for a few hours? It's very important." Theo was not a runner like Doug, who was fuming about his being so late. He needed the bicycle to follow Otis Amber right now. Turtle stared at him in stony silence. "I didn't make that sign in the elevator. Besides, you already kicked me for it. Please, Turtle." She still wouldn't answer, punk kid. "I had a long talk with the police today, but I refused to tell them who the bomber was." "What's that supposed to mean?" "What does she think it means? It means that he and everybody else knows Turtle is the bomber." "Never mind. Can I have your bike or not?" "Why do you want it?" Theo ground his teeth. "Take it easy. Anger won't help any more than blackmail did. Try being a good guy. I saw Angela in the hospital today. She sends her regards." "What's that supposed to mean?" "You let me have that bike, Turtle Wexler, or else." Turtle did not have to ask what "or else" meant. Police bomber, Angela. But how did Theo find out? "Here." She threw the padlock key across the room and waited for him to rush out before she let go of the money. "He's such a nice boy," Flora Baumbach remarked. "Sure," Turtle replied, dialing the telephone number of the hospital. "Angela Wexler, room 325. Room 325 is not accepting any calls." Turtle hung up the phone. If Theo knew, others knew. Angela had set off those fireworks wanting to get caught, but it was different now. Now she was confused. Now she was just plain scared. They could force a confession out of her in no time. The guilt was right there, staring out of those big blue eyes. Maybe they're questioning her now. "Baba, I'm not feeling so good. I think I'll go home to bed." Weaving through rush hour traffic on Turtle's bike, Theo trailed the bus to a seamy downtown district across the railroad tracks where Crow and Otis got off. Skid Row. The pair wandered through the dimly lit, littered, and stinking street, bending over grimy bums asleep in doorways, raising them to their unsteady feet and leading the ragtag procession into a decaying storefront. Paint was peeling off the letters on the window, "Good Salvation Soup Kitchen." A drunken wreck of a man lurched into Theo, who put a quarter into the filthy outstretched hand, more out of fright than charity. Snatches of hymn singing drifted toward him as the last of the stragglers staggered through the door. Theo crossed the narrow street and pressed his nose against the steamy soup kitchen window. Rows of wretched souls sat hunched on wooden benches. Crow stood before them in her neat black dress, her hands raised toward the crumbling ceiling. Behind her, Otis Amber stirred a boiling mess in a big iron pot. Theo pedaled back to Sunset Towers at a furious pace. Whatever brought Crow and Otis Amber to these lower depths was none of his business. He hated himself for spying. He hated Sam Westing and his dirty money and his dirty game. Theo felt as dirty as the derelicts he spied on. Dirtier. The judge thought they had finished with the heirs. "Not quite," said the doorman. McSuthers. Alexander McSuthers, called Sandy, age 65, born Edinburgh, Scotland. Immigrated to Wisconsin, age 3. Educated, 8th grade. Jobs, mill worker, union organizer, prize fighter, doorman. Married, 6 children, 2 grandchildren. Westing connection. Worked in Westing paper plant 20 years. Fired by Sam Westing himself for trying to organize the workers. No pension. Sandy turned to a blank page, pushed his taped glasses up the broken bridge of his nose, and looked at the judge. Name? It did not seem sporting to investigate one's own partner, but McSuthers was right. This was a Westing game, of course. She had kept some facts from him about the other heirs, but only because she did not trust his blabbering. Josie Joe Ford, with a hyphen between Josie and Joe. Age 42, education Columbia, law degree Harvard. The judge waited for the doorman to enter the information in his slow, cramped lettering. He had to be meticulous in order to prove he was better than his 8th grade education. It's a pity he had not gone further. He was quite a clever man. Jobs: assistant district attorney, judge, family court, state supreme court, appellate division. Appellate has 2 P's and 2 L's, never married, no children. Westing connection? The judge paused and spoke so rapidly, Sandy had to stop taking notes. "My mother was a servant in the Westing household. My father worked for the railroad and was the gardener on his days off." "You mean you lived in the Westing house?" Sandy asked with obvious surprise. "You knew the Westings?" I barely saw Mrs. Westing. Violet was a few years younger than I, doll-like and delicate. She was not allowed to play with other children, especially the skinny, long-legged black daughter of the servants. Gee, you must have been lonely, Judge, having nobody to play with. I played with Sam Westing. Chess. Hour after hour I sat staring down at that chessboard. He lectured me, he insulted me, and he won every game. The judge thought of their last game. She had been so excited about taking his queen, only to have the master checkmate her in the next move. Sam Westing had deliberately sacrificed his queen, and she had fallen for it. Stupid child, you can't have a brain in that frizzy head to make a move like that. Those were the last words he ever said to her. The judge continued, I was sent to boarding school when I was 12. My parents visited me at school when they could, but I never set foot in the Westing house again, not until 2 weeks ago. Your folks must have really worked hard, Sandy said. An education like that costs a fortune. Sam Westing paid for my education. He saw that I was accepted into the best schools, probably arranged for my first job, perhaps more. I don't know. That's the first decent thing I've heard about the old man. Hardly decent, Mr. McSuthers. It was to Sam Westing's advantage to have a judge in his debt. Needless to say, I've excused myself from every case remotely connected with Westing affairs. You're awfully hard on yourself, Judge, and on him. Maybe Westing paid for your education because you were smart and needy, and you did all the rest by yourself. This is getting us nowhere, Mr. McSuthers. Just right. Westing connection, education financed by Sam Westing, debt never repaid. Theo, upset over his Skid Row snooping, took out his anger on the up button, poking it, jabbing it, until the elevator finally made its way down to the lobby. Slowly the door slid open. He stared down at the sparking, sputtering arsenal, yelled and belly flopped to the carpet as rockets whizzed out of the elevator, inches above his head. Boom, boom, a blinding flash of white fire streaked through the lobby, through the open entrance door, and burst into a chrysanthemum of color in the night sky. Then the elevator door closed. The bomber had made one mistake. The last rocket blasted off when the elevator returned to the 3rd floor. Boom. By the time the bomb squad reached the scene, by way of the stairs, smoke had cleared, but the young girl was still huddled on the hallway floor, tears streaming down her turtle-like face. For heaven's sake, say something, her mother said. Tell me where it hurts. The pain was too great to put into words. 5 inches of turtle's braid were badly singed. Grace Wexler attacked the policeman. Nothing but a childish prank, you said. Some childish prank, both my children critically injured, almost killed. Maybe now you'll do something, now that it's too late. Unshaken by the mother's anger, the policeman held up the sign that had been taped to the elevator wall. The bomber strikes again. On the reverse side was a handwritten composition, How I Spent My Summer Vacation by Turtle Wexler. Grace grabbed the theme and shook it at her daughter, who was being rocked in Flora Baumbach's arms. Somebody stole this from you, didn't they, Turtle? You couldn't have done such an awful thing. Not to Angela, not to your own sister. Could you, Turtle? Could you? I want to see a lawyer, Turtle replied. A bomb squad, faced with 6 hours overtime filling out forms and delivering the delinquent to a juvenile detention facility, decided it was best for all concerned to escort the prisoner to apartment 4D and place her in the custody of Judge Ford. Judge Ford put on her black robe and seated herself behind the desk. Before her stood a downcast child looking very sad and very sorry, not at all like the turtle she knew. You surprise me, Turtle Wexler. I thought you were too smart to commit such a dangerous, destructive, and stupid act. Yes, ma'am. Why did you do it, Turtle? To hurt someone? To get even with someone? No, ma'am. Of course not. Turtle kicked shin. She was not the type to bottle up her anger. You do understand that a child would not receive as harsh a penalty as an adult would, that there would be no permanent criminal record. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. She was protecting someone. She had set off the fireworks in the elevator to divert suspicion from the real bomber. But who was the real bomber? Nothing to do but drag it out of her, name by name, starting with the least likely. Are you protecting Angela? No! The judge was astounded by the excited response. Angela could not be the bomber, not that sweet, pretty thing. Thing? Is that how she regarded that young woman, as a thing? And what had she ever said to her except, I hear you're getting married, Angela, or how pretty you look, Angela? Had anyone asked her about her ideas, her hopes, her plans? If I had been treated like that, I'd have used dynamite, not fireworks. No, I would have just walked out and kept right on going. But Angela was different. What a senseless thing to do, the judge said aloud. Yes, ma'am. Turtle stared down at the carpet, wondering if she had given Angela away. Judge Ford rose and placed an arm around Turtle's bony shoulders. She'd never wished for a sister until this moment. Turtle, will you give me your word that you will never play with fireworks again? Yes, ma'am. While we're at it, do you have anything else to confess? Yes, ma'am. I was in the Westing house the night Mr. Westing died. Good Lord, child, sit down and tell me. Turtle began with the purple wave story, went on to the whisperings, the bedded down corpse, the dropped peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and her mother's cross, and ended with the $24 she had won. Did either you or Doug Who call the police? No, ma'am, we were too scared. We just ran. Is that a crime? But the judge said it was a criminal offense to conceal a murder. But Mr. Westing didn't look murdered, Turtle argued. He looked asleep, like he did in the coffin. He looked like a wax dummy. A wax dummy? Now Turtle was the one surprised by the excited response. The judge thinks it might have been a real wax dummy, not a corpse at all. Then what happened to Sam Westing? The judge regained her composure. Not reporting a dead body is a violation of the health code, but I wouldn't worry about it. Is there anything else, Turtle? Yes, ma'am, Turtle replied, glancing at the portable bar. Could I have a little bourbon? What? Just a little, on a piece of cotton to put in my cavity. My tooth hurts something awful. Relieved at not having a juvenile alcoholic on her hands, Judge Ford prepared the home remedy. Is that better? Good, you may go home now. Home meant going to Bubba. Bubba loved her no matter what, and Turtle didn't care if the others thought she was the bomber, except Sandy. He was walking toward her right now, walking his bouncy walk, but not smiling. Sandy was disappointed in her, he thinks. She hurt her own sister. He doesn't want to be friends anymore. How's my girl? Sandy said, cupping his hand under her chin and lifting her head. Whew, hitting the bottle again? It's just bourbon on cotton for my toothache. Yeah, I've heard that one before. Honest, Sandy, Turtle was pointing inside her wide-open mouth. The doorman peered in. Wow, that's some cavity. It looks like the Grand Canyon. Tomorrow you're going to see my dentist. No back talk. He's very gentle. You won't feel a thing. Promise you'll go? Turtle nodded. Sandy smiled. Good then, down to business. My wife's having a birthday tomorrow. I thought one of your gorgeous striped candles would make a swell present. There's only one candle left, Turtle replied. It's the best of the lot. 6 super colors. I spent a lot of time making it. That's why I wouldn't part with it. But since it's for your wife's birthday, Sandy, I'll let you have it for only $5, and I won't charge you sales tax. Try not to stick your fanny out so far, Angela said from her chair. Now that Sidel Pulaski depended on her crutches, she lurched clumsily, hobbled by old habits. And just keep reading those clues, the secretary straightened shoulders back, stomach in until her next step. With their telephone switched off and contagious disease added to no visitor sign, the bomb victims had privacy at last. Sidel had twice read the entire will aloud. Now Angela, her hands unbandaged, was reshuffling the collected clues. Grain's spacious grace good hood with beautiful majesties from thy purple waves on no mountain. Again, Sidel ordered, change them around and read either the word on or the word no. Both together are confusing. Good spacious grains with grace on thy purple mountain hood waves from majesties beautiful. Shh, someone was at the door. Angela picked up the note that was slipped underneath. My darling Angela, I guess the sign on the door means I should stay away too. I understand we both need time to think things over. I'll wait. I love you, Denton. What does it say? What does it say? Sidel pressed, but Angela read only the postscript aloud. P.S. You have another admirer. Chris wants to give you and Ms. Pulaski one of our clues. Flora Baumbach has seen it too. The word is plane. Like an airplane? Sidel asked. No, plain, like ordinary, like the wide open plains. Plains, grains. Quick, Angela, read the clues again. Good hood from spacious plain, grains on with beautiful waves, grace thy purple mountain majesties. That's it, Angela. We got it. Sidel could barely control her excitement. The will said, sing in praises of this generous land. The will said, may God thy gold refine. America, Angela, America. Purple Mountain's majesty, Angela. Whoopee! Fortunately, Sidel Pulaski was close to the bed when she threw her crutches in the air. Chapter 22, Losers, Winners. Saturday morning, a new message was posted in the elevator. I, Turtle Wexler, confess to those 4 bombs. I'm sorry. It was a dumb thing to do, and I won't do it again. But I am not the burglar, and I never murdered anybody, ever. Your friend Turtle. P.S. To make up for scaring you, I will treat everybody here to an exquisite Chinese cuisine dinner when I win the inheritance. Poor Grace, Mr. Who said. One daughter almost killed, the other one a bomber. Smart aleck kid. First she blows up my kitchen, then she advertises my cuisine. Win the inheritance. Ha! Maybe I'm lucky my son is a dumb jock. Boom, Madam Who said happily. She knew where they were going. Always on the day when Doug ate 6 eggs for breakfast, he ran around and around a big track, and people clapped and gave him a shiny medal. Doug was so proud of his medals. She would never take them, not even the gold ones, not even if it took her 2 more years to pay to go back to China. No, she would never take Doug's medals, and she would never sell that wonderful clock with the mouse who wears gloves and points to the time. You must be out of your mind, Jake Wexler. Go to a track meet with all those people pointing at me, snickering, saying, look, there she is, the mother of Cain and Abel. I'm not even sure I have the nerve to show my face at the Westinghouse tonight. Come on, Grace, it'll do you good. The podiatrist urged his reluctant wife down the third-floor hall. Stop thinking about yourself for a change. Think how poor Turtle must feel. Don't ever mention that child to me again, not after what she did to Angela. I never told you this, Jake, but I've always had a sinking sensation that the hospital mixed up the babies when Turtle was born. It's no wonder she wanted to blow us all up. Grace's despair exploded in anger. Oh, I get it. You're putting the blame on me. If you had given her a good talking to about kicking people when I asked, she might not have ended up a common criminal. Whatever became of that fun-loving woman I married? What was her name? Grace Windclopple? Grace quickly looked around to see if anyone had overheard that ugly name, but they were in the elevator alone. Oh, I know what people think, she complained. Poor Jake Wexler, good guy, everybody's friend, married to that uppity would-be decorator. Well, Angela's not going to have to scrimp and save to make ends meet. She's going to marry a real doctor. I'll see to that. Sure you will, Grace. You'll see that Angela doesn't marry a loser like her father. A real doctor, she says. A podiatrist is a real doctor. Well, it is these days. Back when he went to school, it was different. He could have gone back, taken more courses, but he was married by then, a father. Oh, who's he kidding? Gracie's right. He is a loser. Next, she'll mention having to give up her family because she married a Jew. No, she never brings that up. Grace, with all her faults, would never do that. The elevator door opened to the lobby. Grace turned to her silent, sad-eyed husband, the loser. Oh, Jake, what's happening to us? What's happening to me? Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not a nice person. Jake pressed the closed door button and took his sobbing wife into his arms. It's all right, Gracie. We're going home. The doors open on the second floor. Mom, what's the matter with her? Daddy, she's crying. Gee, Mom, I'm sorry. It was just a few fireworks. If her mother ever found out who the real bomber was, she'd really go to pieces. Turtle looked even more like a turtle today with her sad little face peering out of the kerchief tied under her small chin. Let go of the door, Turtle, Jake said, and have a good time at the track meet. You too, Mrs. Baumbach. Track meet? They weren't going to a track meet, and they sure weren't going to have a good time. Grace was still sobbing on Jake's shoulder as he led her into their apartment. Mother, what's the matter? What's wrong with her, Dad? Nothing, Angela. Your mother's just having a good cry. Why don't you and Miss Pulaski leave us alone for a while? Come, Angela, Sidell said, prodding her with the tip of one of her mismatched crutches. We have some painting to do. Angela looked back at the embracing couple. Her father's face was buried in her weeping mother's tousled hair. They had not asked how she got home from the hospital by taxi, and they had not asked if she was still in pain, not much, and they had not even peeked under the bandage to see if the scar was forming on her cheek. There was. Angela was on her own. Well, that's what she wanted, wasn't it? Yes, it was. She uttered a short laugh, and her hand flew up to the pain in her face. Do I look funny or something? No, I wasn't laughing at you, Sidell. I'd never laugh at you. It's just that suddenly everything seemed all right. It's all right, her partner replied, unlocking the 4 locks on her apartment door. Tonight's the night we're going to win it all. Were they? The will said look for a name. They had a song, but not a name. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, Sidell began to sing, for purple waves of grain. Not purple, Angela corrected her. Amber, for amber waves of grain. Amber! Judge Ford paced the floor. Tonight, Sam Westing would wreak his revenge unless she could prevent it. If she was right, the person in danger was the former Mrs. Westing. And if Turtle was right about the wax dummy, Sam Westing himself might be there to watch the fun. There was a knock on her door. The judge was surprised to see Denton Deer, even more surprised when he wheeled Chris Theodorakis into her apartment. Hello, Judge. Everybody else in the building is going to the track meet, it seems. I passed Sandy on the way out, and he said you wouldn't mind having Chris for part of the afternoon. I've got to get back to the hospital. Hello, Judge Ford. Chris held out a steady hand, which the judge shook. You're looking well, Chris. The medicine helped a lot. It's a big step forward, the intern said. Wrong word. The kid may never leave that wheelchair. An even more effective medication is now in the developmental stage. That really sounded pompous. Well, so long, Chris. See you tonight. Thanks, Judge. He knows lots of big words, Chris said. Yes, he certainly does, Judge Ford replied. What was she going to do with this boy here? She had so much to think about, so much to plan. You can work, I'll bird watch, Chris offered, wheeling to the window, his binoculars banging against his thin chest. Good idea. The judge returned to her desk to study the newspaper clippings. Mrs. Westing, a tall, thin woman. She may no longer be thin, but she would still be tall, about 60 years old. If Sam Westing's former wife was one of the heirs, she had to be Crow. Look, Chris shouted, startling the judge into dropping her files to the floor. She rushed to his side, thinking he needed help. Look up there, Judge. Isn't it beautiful? High in the fall sky, a V of geese was flying south. Yes, it was a beautiful sight. Those are geese, the judge explained. Canada goose. Branta canadensis, Chris replied. The judge was impressed, but she had work to do. Stooping to gather the dropped clippings, she was confronted by the face of Sam Westing. The photograph had been taken 15 years ago. Those piercing eyes, the Van Dyke beard, the short beaked nose, like a turtle's, the wax dummy in the coffin had been molded in the former image of Sam Westing as he looked 15 years ago, not as he looked now. She searched the folder. No recent photographs, no hospital records, no death certificate, just the accident report from the State Highway Police. Dr. Sidney Sykes suffered a crushed leg, and Samuel W. Westing had severe facial injuries. Facial injuries. It was the face that had disappeared 15 years ago, not the man. Westing had a different face, a face remodeled by plastic surgery, a different face and a different name. Now what? Her gaze rested on her charge at the window. Feeling her eyes, Chris turned around. The boy has a nice smile. I hope you're better at filling cavities than making false teeth, Turtle said, gripping the arms of the dentist chair. In a glass cabinet against the wall, 3 rows of dentures grinned at her with crooked teeth, overlapping teeth, notched teeth. Those faults are what make the dentures look real, the dentist explained. Nothing in nature is quite perfect, you know. Now open your mouth wide. Wider. Ow! Turtle screamed before the probe touched the tooth. Just relax, young lady. I'll tell you when to say ow. Turtle tried to think about other things. False teeth, buck teeth, that rotten buck-tooth Barney Northrop stopped by this morning to tell the Wexlers they would have to pay for all the damage done by the bombs. Barney Northrop had called her parents irresponsible and had called her something worse, much worse. He sure was surprised by that kick. It was her hardest one ever. Now you can say ow, the dentist unclipped the towel from her shoulder. Turtle pressed her tongue over the drilled tooth. She had not felt a thing, but the real pain was yet to come. Flora Baumbach was taking her to the beauty parlor to have her singed hair cut off. College teams from 5 states competed in the first indoor track meet of the season, but the big event, the mile run, was won by a high school senior. That's my boy, that's my Doug, Mr. Who shouted, one voice among thousands cheering the youngster on his victory lap. Cameras flashed and Doug posed, smiling broadly, index fingers high in the air. I owe it all to my dad, he told reporters, and cameras flashed again as Doug flung his arm around the proud Mr. Who. Just wait until the next Olympics, the inventor thought. With Doug's feet and my inner soles, he'll run them all to the ground. Later that evening, Madame Who chattered in unintelligible Chinese, made it known that she wanted Doug to wear his prize to the Westing house. Standing on tiptoe, she placed the ribbon over his bent head and patted the shiny gold medal in place on his chest. Good boy, she said in English. A saddened Sandy returned to apartment 4D. Hi, Chris. Did you talk to him, Judge? Talk to whom? Barney Northrop. He was waiting at the front door when I got back from the track meet. Mad as a wet cat. He said he had lots of complaints about me. Never being on duty, drinking on the job, lies like that. He fired me right on the spot. I told him you wanted to see him, figuring you might put in a good word so he'd let me stay on. No, Mr. McSuthers, I'm sorry, but I haven't seen Barney Northrop since I rented this apartment. Barney Northrop was that Westing's disguise. False buck teeth, slick black wig, pasted on mustache. Well, it's not the first time I got fired for no cause. The dejected doorman blew his nose loudly in a Westing man-sized hanky. Hey, Chris, bet you don't know the Latin name of the red-headed woodpecker. That was a hard one. Chris had to say Melanurpus erythrocephalus very slowly. Some smart kid, hey, Judge? Chris, the judge and I have a little business to discuss. Excuse us for a minute. Judge Ford joined the doorman in the kitchen. Our game plan is this, Mr. McSuthers. We give no answer at all. Our duty is to protect Westing's ex-wife. Crow? Sandy guessed. That's right. There's something else that's been bothering me, Judge. I know it sounds crazy, but well, I found out Otis Amber doesn't live in the grocer's basement, and he's not as dumb as he pretends. He's a snoop and a troublemaker, and I don't think he is who he says he is. And who do you think Otis Amber is? The judge asked. Sam Westing. Judge Ford leaned in against the sink and pressed her head against the cabinet. If Sandy was correct, she had played right into the man's hands. Sam Westing's hands. Come on, Crow. You always like to get there early to open the door for people. Crow had stopped in the middle of the steep road to stare up at the Westing house. I've got a funny feeling that something evil is waiting for me up there, Otis. It's a bad house full of misery and sin. He's still there, you know. Sam Westing is dead and buried. Come on, if we don't go, we got to give the money back, and we've already spent it on the soup kitchen. I feel his presence, Otis. He's looking for a murderer. Violet's murderer. Stop scaring yourself with crazy notions. You sound like you're on the bottle again. Crow strode ahead. I didn't mean that, Crow. Honest. Look up there at that moon. Isn't it romantic? Somebody's in real danger, Otis, and I think it's me. And the last chapter we're going to read today is chapter 23, and it's called Strange Answers. Lawyer Plum was there in one pair of airs when Otis Amber danced into the game room. Hee hee hee, the turtle's lost its tail, I see. Turtle slumped low in her chair. Flora Baumbach thought the short, sleek haircut was adorable, especially the way it swept forward over her little chin. But Turtle did not want to look adorable. She wanted to look mean. The dressmaker fumbled past the wad of money in her handbag. Here, Alice, I thought you might like to see this. Turtle glanced at the old snapshot. It's Bubba, all right, except younger. Same dumb smile. Suddenly she sat upright. That's my daughter, Rosalie, Flora Baumbach said. She must have been 9 or 10 when that picture was taken. Rosalie was squat and square and squinty. Her protruding tongue was too large for her mouth. Her head lolled to one side. I think I would have liked her, Baba, Turtle said. Rosalie looks like she was a very happy person. She must have been nice to have around. Thump, 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 thump. Here come the victims, Sidel Pulaski announced. Angela greeted her sister with a wave of her crimson-streaked healing hand. Turtle had convinced her not to confess. It would mean a criminal record. It would kill their mother, and no one would believe her anyhow. I like your haircut. Thanks, Turtle replied. Now Angela had to love her forever. Most of the heirs had to comment on Turtle's hair. You look like a real businesswoman, Sandy said. Well, that's an improvement, Denton Deer said. You look nice, Chris said. Only Theo, bent over the chessboard, said nothing. White had moved the king's bishop since the last meeting. It was his move. At last, the stares turned from Turtle's hair to a more surprising sight. Judge Ford strode in as regally as an African princess, her noble head swathed in a turban, her tall body draped in yards of hand-printed cloth. She slipped a note to Denton Deer, then sailed to her place at table 4. Goggle-eyed, Otis Amber was speechless. They all were, except for Sandy. Gee, that's a nifty outfit, Judge. Is that what you call ethnic? The judge did not reply. Applaud, the local hero has arrived. Doug raised his arms, pointing his index fingers to the flaking gilt ceiling in the I'm number 1 sign, and acknowledged the clapping with a victory lap around the room. Here come the Wexlers, Mr. Hu remarked, seating his puzzled wife at table 1. Turtle exchanged an anxious glance with Angela. The last time they saw their mother, she was crying her head off. Now the tears were gone from her bleary eyes, but she was staggering, giggling. Her hair was a mess. Sorry we're late, Jake apologized. We lost track of time. They had clinked wine glasses in a small cafe, the cafe they used to go to before they were married, toasting good times. They had had many good times together, many good memories shared, it seems, 3 big wine bottles full. Happy Grace waved at the heirs. She felt so wonderful, so overflowing with love for Jake, for everybody. Hi, Mom, Turtle called. Grace blinked at a young, short-haired girl. Who's that? Jake greeted his partner with a, how are you this fine day? Doug Wynne, replied Madam Hu. Having opened the door to the last of the heirs, a tense and troubled Crow took her seat next to Otis Amber. Ghost threatened, she waited for the unseen. Hey, lawyer, can we open these? Otis Amber shouted, waving an envelope. A similar envelope lay on each table. His forehead creased with uncertainty. Ed Plum fumbled through his papers. I guess so, was his opinion. Cheers erupted, and the heirs withdrew their checks. Again, Judge Ford signed her name to the $10,000 check and handed it to the doorman. Here you are, Mr. McSuthers. This should tide you over until you find another job. Sandy's heartfelt thanks were muffled by Sidel Pulaski's loud shh, shh, Grace Wexler mimicked, then she dropped her head into her crossed arms on the table and fell asleep to the sound of the lawyer's throat-clearing coughs. 12th. Welcome again to the Westinghouse. By now you have received a second check for $10,000. Before the day is done, you may have won more, much more. Table by table, each pair will be called to give one and only one answer. The lawyer will record your response in case of a dispute. He does not know the answer. It is up to you. 1. Madam Sunlin Hu, cook, Jake Wexler, bookie. Bookie? He really must have been distracted when he signed that receipt. Jake studied the 5 clues on the table. Of America and God above. Even knowing his wife's clues didn't help. He'd have to gamble on a long shot. Say something, he said to his partner. Boom, said Madam Hu. Ed Plum wrote Table 1, boom. Flora Bombach, dressmaker, Turtle Wexler, financier. Turtle read a prepared statement. In spite of the fact that the stock market dropped 30 points since we received our $10,000, we have increased our capital to $11,587.50, an appreciation of 27.8% calculated on an annual basis. Flora Bombach clapped a wad of bills on the table and 2 clinking quarters. In cash, she said. Ed Plum asked them to repeat their answer. Table 2's answer is $11,587.50. Sandy applauded. Turtle took a bow. Chris Theodorakis, ornithologist, D. Denton Deer, intern. Ornithologist? His brother must have given him that fancy title when he filled in the receipt. Maybe he would become an ornithologist someday. He was a lucky person getting that medicine and all. He didn't want to accuse anybody, not Judge Ford, apartment 4D, not Otis Grain, Amber, not the limper. Just about everybody limped at one time or another. Today, Sandy was limping. I think Mr. Westing is a good man, Chris said aloud. I think his last wish was to do good deeds. He gave me a partner who helped me. He gave everybody the perfect partner to make friends. What is Table 3's answer? The lawyer asked. Denton Deer replied, our answer is Mr. Westing was a good man. J.J. Ford, Judge, Alexander McSuthers, fired. We don't have an answer, the ex-storeman responded as planned. The judge looked at Table 3. Denton Deer, her note in his hand, shook his head, which meant no, Otis Amber had not had plastic surgery done on his face. The judge turned to Table 6. Otis Amber could not be Sam Westing. She was right to have trusted him. But Crow was expecting something to happen. Crows know she is the answer. She knows she is the one. Grace Winclopple Wexler, restaurateur. James Hu, inventor. Grace raised her head. Did someone say Winclopple? Never mind, Winclopple, it's our turn, Hu snarled. The lawyer got names and positions all fouled up, and I've got a drunk for a partner. He prodded Grace to her feet. Faces were swirling. The floor was swaying. Grace grabbed the edge of the floating table and gave her answer in a thick, slurred voice. The newly decorated restaurant, Who's on First, the eatery of athletes, will hold its grand opening on Sunday. Specialty of the day, fruited sea bass on purple waves. Grace sat down where the chair wasn't. Turtle gasped. Angela looked away. The heirs tittered as Jake helped his wife up from the floor. What is Table 5's answer, please? The lawyer pressed. Ed Plum, said Mr. Hu. Yes, sir. That's our answer, Ed Plum. Oh. Bertha Erica Crow, mother. Otis Amber, deliverer. Mother? Did I write mother? Crow mumbled. Is that your answer? Ed Plum asked. I don't know, Otis Amber replied. Is mother our answer, Crow? He could have sworn she had signed the receipt, Good Salvation Soup Kitchen. Crow repeated mother, and that's what the lawyer wrote down. Doug Hu, champ. Thea Theodorakis, writer. Their clues, a chemical formula for an explosive and the letters OTIS. Doug, basking in glory, didn't care. Theo stood, turned to the man he was about to accuse, and saw the scene in the soup kitchen, saw Otis Amber cooking soup for the dirty, hungry men. No answer, Theo said, sitting down. Sidell Pulaski, victim. Angela Wexler, person. Sidell was dressed for the occasion in red and white stripes, leaning on crutches decorated with white stars on a field of blue to match the cast on her ankle. She hummed into a pitch pipe and began to sing one note above the pitch she played. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. What a spectacle she made, her wide rear end sticking out, singing in that tuneless nasal voice. The derisive smiles soon faded as, pair by pair, the heirs heard their code words sung. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Such a beautiful song, Grace Wexler slurred, but the others sat in somber silence. Even Turtle thought Table 8 had won. What is your answer? Ed Plum asked. Her answer, Sidell Pulaski announced with certainty, is Otis Amber. The heirs listened to the lawyer read the next document, but their eyes stayed fixed on Table 8's answer, Otis Amber. 13th. Okay, folks, there will be a short break before the big winner is announced. Birthday, B-E-R-T-H-E, even though it's been Bertha all this time, Erica Crow, please rise and go to the kitchen for the refreshments. Dazed with fear, Crow rose. The 13th section, 13, was an unlucky number. Judge Ford told Sandy to follow her. Hey, Crow, old pal, do me a favor and fill this for me, he said, handing her his flask as they left through the door. I'll go on the wagon starting tomorrow, promise. Angela left the room too, concerned over Crow's trance-like state. Turtle followed Angela to make sure she didn't end up in the fireworks room again. The judge remained seated, watching the remaining heirs who were watching Otis Amber. The delivery boy had had enough of their suspicions. He swept a pointed finger across their range, imitating the sound of a machine gun. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat. Crow and Angela came back with 2 large trays. Turtle returned empty-handed, puzzled but much relieved. The judge joined Denton, Deer, and Chris at table 3, bringing a plate of small cakes with her. None of the heirs have had plastic surgery as far as I can tell, the intern remarked, but your partner sure could have used some. The judge studied Sandy McSuther's prize-fighter's face as he leaned against the open doorway. Their eyes met and he lifted his flask in salute. Anybody want a drink? Sure, Grace Wexler replied with a giggle, but Jake gave her a cup of strong black coffee instead. We must keep our wits about us, Mr. McSuthers, Judge Ford said, walking toward him. Sam Westing has not made his final move. Nothing like scotch to clear the head, he replied. He took a long swig, coughed, wiped his mouth on the sleeve of his uniform, and glared at Crow with narrow, watery eyes. Theo grinned down at the chess table. White had made another move, a careless move. He licked the cake crumbs from his fingers, wiped his hands on Westing paper tea napkin, and took his opponent's queen from the board. At least he had won the chess game. Perched on a corner of table 8, the young lawyer tried to start a conversation with Angela, ignoring Sidell Pulaski, who twice asked, Surely you must have the answer, Mr. Plum, she nudged her partner. Surely you must have the answer, Mr. Plum, Angela repeated sweetly. Oh, of course, at least I assume I do, he replied. My instructions are to open the documents one by one at the scheduled time. He checked his watch. Oops, he was 1 minute late. Ed Plum hurried to the billiard table, tore open the next envelope, and pulled out the document, cutting his finger on the paper's edge. 14th, go directly to the library. Do not pass go. So, that is the end of what we're reading today. That was a little bit longer than normal, but that's okay. Next week, we are going to read chapters 24 and 25, and chapter 24 is called Wrong, All Wrong. So, who do you think did it? What do you think is up? There's a lot of things we learned in these last couple chapters. So think about it, and we hope you'll come back next week to find out what happens in the next 2 chapters. Have a great day.